2024 had its fair share of misfires, masterworks, and straight-up crimes against nature. I already got my list of the top 10 movies of the year on my channel, but today I wanted to discuss the unsung heroes, the creative movies that deserved more attention than they got. Here are 5 underrated films from 2024, starting with Heretic. First off, the update to my best and worst 2024 horror films will be out in February. Heretic was brought up in some of the comments of the original video, and I'm so glad I listened to you guys because I really liked this one. Heretic does a wonderful job recreating that slow, dawning on you fear that something is wrong and you should get out of the situation you're in. The film is patient enough to turn that dial of suspense ever so slightly over the course of the first act. And not only does this tension feel realistic and terrifying, but it never bored me in the slightest because of how good the dialogue is. The religious discussions are well researched and the analogies used are logical and entertaining. It's also clear that Heretic is using these religious debates and concepts to tell a story, and not to convert you or make you give up religion entirely. And if anyone is walking away from the film thinking that, they've missed the point. The acting is great, greater than I expected, honestly. Taking an actor known more for comedies and putting them in a dramatic or horror role has become almost common now, and Hugh Grant still defied my expectations. The adorable stuttering that he's known for isn't here, and he instead comes across like a charming professor, but one who lets something sinister slip bit by bit. The 2 actresses also give stellar performances and do an impressive job showing fear while also trying to contain it. Heretic is nicely shot, with interesting choices for framing that make the situation more unsettling. The production design team had a tough task of creating a room that feels equally like a research study and something cultish, even evil, and they did a fantastic job. The house is very much a character, its functions act as major plot elements, so I'm glad that so much care was put into its design. My only problem with this movie is unfortunately one of those writing 101 problems. You need to start strong to get people engaged, and end strong to leave a lasting impression. Every guru, guidebook, and overpriced masterclass will tell you how vital the bookends of your story are, and Heretic fails in this respect. The intro is awkward and overlong, and the ending is anticlimactic and cliche. It's kind of a bummer. But the film is still so worth watching for that juicy middle. Don't go in expecting to be scared, go in expecting something suspenseful and occasionally gory, with dialogue that isn't afraid to treat you like an adult.
Pie smells amazing. And now that you've been studying the Book of Mormon, how does it make you feel?
Can you guess what kind of pie she's making?
Is it blueberry pie?
It is blueberry pie.
I knew it, my favorite.
Going back, can I ask, how did your father pass away?
Next is Flow. Yeah, calling this unseen or underrated may seem odd since it just won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature, but come on, let's be fair, no one gives a shit about the Golden Globes. Ricky Gervais putting celebrities in their place got more views than the ceremony itself.
You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg.
The thing is, I still don't see enough people talk about this one, and to me, that makes it underrated. Plus, I just really want to talk about it, so meh. The animation bugged me at first. It was made on the free software Blender, and it shows. Textures look cheap, and the jump in animations are terrible. Also, this is a small detail, but when the dog shakes water off itself, it looks weak as shit. But maybe I picked up on that because I have a dog. Hey, who wants a montage of Clay's dog? Overall, I don't like the beginning, from the shoddy animation to the score that sounded like stock music. But then something happened. It kept getting better. The music became more evocative. Different animals hopped on this boat, and as smoothly as butter, a voyage was now being created. Even the animation got better, both in the movements and how the adaptive lighting and environments helped iron out those rough edges. To be clear, I don't think animation has to be high budget. What you do with your limitations is huge, and I appreciate how Flow managed to sidestep its low budget with creative choices. I like how long the shots last, and there's clearly an eye for the cinematic with these silhouettes, panning shots, and angles. What really blew my mind was the simple but effective concept. We watch a journey of 5 animals who are smart enough to understand how a sailing rudder works, but otherwise are normal creatures. It's not like Finding Nemo, where they are basically humans in animal bodies. At points, it's like witnessing a nature documentary, but in a post-apocalyptic environment. The animals chosen have natural behaviors that create the kind of tension and comedy that you would see in an adventure with humans. The calm capybara, the cautious cat, the proud secretary bird, the anxious lemur, and the goofy dog. Flow is like what I thought the DreamWorks movie Spirit was going to be, except that the latter decided to add narration by a hungover-sounding Matt Damon. The lack of dialogue and tranquil moments will cause comparison to Miyazaki, but I got a more Team Ico feel from it. The massive landscapes dotted with empty buildings imply a return to nature, a world both beautiful and uncaring. This may replace my number 10 pick on my recent top 10 video. I still need to think about it, but honestly, this was such a nice surprise. Next up is Love Lies Bleeding. There's a word I've been thinking on a lot lately in regards to film criticism, and that word is messy. I'm intrigued by how a piece of art's messiness can endear me to it, but can also put me off and annoy me. I think the deciding factor is how seriously the film takes itself. For example, the 2024 drama The Brutalist, which should expect to get a lot of Oscar noms despite my willing to bet my bank balance that most of the voters didn't finish the 3-hour runtime, is kind of a mess. Good film, honestly a better film, but the themes and story, especially in the third act, are all over the place. This annoyed me. But then in something like Love Lies Bleeding, a messy mess of body horror, romance, crime, drama, 80s nostalgia, endeared me. The chaos felt more intentional rather than a misstep. It fit the overall mood. And what I find so interesting about that mood is that there never seems to be a solitary one. Lovemaking will be romantic and then a bit disturbing. Violence will be brutal but also kind of hilarious. Contradictory? Maybe. Or maybe it's perfect, because we're following a woman pumping herself with so much steroids that she starts to do a cannonball into total psychosis. All of this aside, I think the movie should have gotten more notice because it goes far beyond being pulpy midnight madness. Sure, it'll work as that. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if this became some kind of lesbian cult film in the future. But it's also an honest-to-God good film. The camera work is purposeful, the use of color is vibrant, the production design evokes the 80s fitness culture. Kristen Stewart and especially Katie O'Brien give fearless performances. The visual effects and makeup look great. The characters are memorable and their actions match their motivations. Love Lies Bleeding is doing a lot of things, and perhaps too many, but it's doing them well. And while the ending may lose you, as it almost lost me, it's still a great way to spend 100 minutes. I have a soft spot for movies that throw caution to the wind, but do so with technical skill. This is one of those movies.
I asked you to do one thing, I said stay home while I sort out everything! How much of that stuff did you take? Your mask. What? You hey! Oh! Jack? Ah. It's okay.
For this next one, I was going to put Piece by Piece, the animated documentary about Pharrell Williams, but as fun as it is to see just how influential the Neptunes were on 2000s pop and hip-hop, seriously, they did everything, it glosses over too much and never fully escapes being a vanity project. Instead, I'm putting Last Stop in Yuma County, a lovely little bottle film. For those who don't know, bottle films take place in limited locations, and as you can imagine, only really function with the right concept, dialogue, and acting. Here, the setting is perfect, a pit stop in the middle of nowhere with no air conditioning and a gasoline shortage. The fact it's the only spot for miles means there's a revolving door of new characters, and the lack of gas means that everyone is essentially trapped together. As for characters, you have 2 bank robbers, a salt-of-the-earth couple, a sharp waitress, and a nervous knife salesman, and you got a great setup for comedy and suspense. In terms of sequence of events, we've seen similar stories before, but what raises this up are the decisions by the director. When a robber gives an ultimatum to other characters, the camera stays on him, keeping us in the hot seat. There's a nice variety of shots, close-ups, wide shots, overheads, and pans. The movie even opens with a bird perched by the gas station and flying away the moment a character pulls up. And it's so perfectly timed, I can't tell whether it was a real bird or not. Everything stays visually fresh. The performances range from solid to great, and I liked the older bank robber especially for being so believably intimidating. It's the kind of movie that will have you thinking about what you would do in this situation, and it's fun to watch how certain decisions come back to bite later on. Last Stop in Yuma County plays out like a cross between Tarantino and the Coen brothers, but on a smaller scale. It's not as good as, say, Hateful Eight or Fargo, but it's got a lot to offer and should have more eyes on it. It's short and sweet and really well done.
Fuck you doing, old man?
Shoot him, Robert.
Hold your horses,
You
honey.
shoot him or I will.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Let her go. We start shooting at your friend there.
Fuck you, man!
Okay, everyone just calm down.
What are you doing, boy?
Yeah, Miles, what the hell are you doing?
Jesus Christ, does everybody have a fucking gun?
Last up is the Swedish drama A Part of You, which you can find on Netflix. Oddly enough, I chose this for the list before a certain event happened. For those unaware, I lost my sister a few weeks ago, so discussing a film about grief is hard for me, but also rewarding because A Part of You actually gets it. Grief isn't just about sadness or the standard 5 stages. Grief can also lead people to be callous and self-destructive. Grief can be uncomfortable, even awkward, and people's separate mourning processes can interrupt each other. At the start, we follow two sisters who have an almost Tom Sawyer Huck Finn dynamic. One is the raucous, joyful center of attention, and the protagonist is more shy and reserved. However, and light spoiler here, but honestly it's the main crux of the story, the former dies and the protagonist deals with this loss while also navigating school, romance, family, and new passions. Without outright stating what she's doing, our protagonist starts living as the sibling she lost, adopting her behavior, her callousness, and party girl attitude. Early on, she starts wearing her shirt, which causes everyone around her to start casting worried glances. Now, this is all conceptual, and such an emotional journey wouldn't work if the filmmaking wasn't there. Quite a few movies are praised for their concepts and not execution, so trust me when I say that A Part of You succeeds in the ways it needs to. The performances are exceptional across the board. It's not just in the visceral moments that the lead actress shines, but the larger, more gradual transitions come across as natural and therefore all the more heartbreaking. The camera work is intimate without becoming stale, and the theater class serves as a smart way for the script to bring the protagonist's inner turmoil to the surface. You really feel like you're watching a real girl struggle. I'll end this with a particular scene that I love. Each student has to display an emotion, and our lead gets anger. Being naturally shy, she is unsure how to proceed, and so the teacher asks her to yell. Obviously, it's not quite there, so he then asks her to do what all actors do: pretend to be someone else. Think of someone who would scream out loud. So, those are some underrated movies from 2024. What are some of yours? If you want to say hello, please check out the Discord link in the video description and the Patreon for fun rewards. I'll be live streaming soon, so be on the lookout for that announcement. Subscribe, share the video, all the support means a lot, and as always, thanks for watching.